Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar called Co-Management for Windows 10, Transitioning to Modern Management in Bite-Sized Steps. My name is Vishal Ladwa. I'm part of the professional services team at PowerON Platforms. My core background is around Windows deployment and management with System Center, Config Manager and Intune for the best part of 10 years or so now. I'd like to think my approach is very much business-led rather than technology-led to help provide solutions which meet the business requirements rather than installing the latest and greatest products to ensure customers get the right return on their investment. To get in touch, you can find me on Twitter at vladwa, as well as my email address there, which is vishal.ladwa@poweronplatforms.com. Now, a little bit about PowerON Platforms. We are a Microsoft Gold partner, as well as part of the exclusive EMS Elite Partners program, which gives us nice inroads into the EMS product team. We focus on work streams of products that we're very good at, which is Azure OMS, Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite, the entire System Center stack, as well as Windows 10. We've also internally developed a portfolio suite of products which helps to simplify and automate deployment and management based on our customers' business and technical requirements. So there's Pulse DMS, which is a device management and security platform, which utilizes both Config Manager and Azure to give that purely cloud approach with regards to the full end-to-end enterprise device management. There's also Pulse OMM, which is Operations Manager monitoring platform in the cloud. And there's also Camino, which allows us to rapidly stand up enterprise production-ready Config Manager current branch. And on top of that, deliver a national cybersecurity compliant, NCSE compliant Windows 10 build. So for today's agenda, fairly straightforward. Hopefully it will be very informative on one of the latest features, which is co-management of Windows 10 devices. So we'll start with what is co-management, capabilities, what does it do, and why does it exist. Then we'll discuss the different scenarios that you can leverage, where you can actually leverage co-management. Next, we'll look at the architecture and components that are required to enable co-management. And you'll be glad to hear I'll not be boring you with endless slides. So once we've set the scene, we'll dive straight into my lab environment to walk you through the hands-on process of setting this up and how the co-management components hang together. And eventually we can wrap this up and with what you'd expect with questions and answers. So what is co-management? In short, co-management is the ability for a Windows 10 machine, so the full creators update, in specifically 1709 build, the latest one, to be managed by Intune and Config Manager together. So allowing you to offload some of the Config Manager workloads into Intune. So you end up in a state where you're operating with both solutions, traditional and modern. Co-management is basically a more simplified and manageable way to transition from Config Manager and Active Directory to a modern management approach with a migration to management through Intune and Azure AD. Almost all customers that I speak to, they're shifting their focus and aligning their strategy to adopt more cloud services, to deploy workloads through Intune and Azure AD. So why this drive to modern management to Intune and Azure AD? Well, users want to be more agile. We get that. There's a shift in the mindset of the ways of doing business in the modern workplace now. Users no longer are bound to the traditional corporate network. The business and users, they're demanding from IT more agile ways of working. Access to corporate resources 24/7, including SaaS applications, from a variety of different devices in order to remain competitive. in the market. They want to be able to work from anywhere on any device at any given time. This is driven by needing to stay competitive in today's market, and users expect a more consumer experience when engaging with business. Secondly, there's feature enhancements as well. Microsoft is currently working towards bringing more settings and policies that Config Manager traditionally provides, and moving that into Intune without some of the complexities experienced with Config Manager. And IT wants to provide the latest security and productivity features that are being rolled out in a simple way. So that kind of goes into the simplifying the management overheads as well. There's less complexities with taking care of on-prem hardware in data centers, maintaining perimeter networks, AD group policies, and even traditional OS deployment with managing and maintaining a reference image, with drivers, etc., maintaining all that data and content on-prem, for software deployments and software updates, etc. So that all sounds great, but what are the options to go to modern management? Let's look at these briefly. You will quickly realize there are major challenges when moving to modern management. And I'm sure that you're already painfully aware of the challenges of moving to modern management. So if you're a brand new organization, it's likely you can go to cloud first much more easily, because you don't have that legacy on-prem systems to worry about. So you don't have that the old baggage of a domain controller and config manager. So there's the option to do a big switch, so all or nothing approach. However, the reality is that this will never really happen because of the digital disruption that's introduced into the business. You've already invested in these on-prem solutions with connections to AD or integration with config manager. And there's also feature gaps, right? So most likely Intune and AD, Azure AD may not have the full capabilities yet to meet the actual business requirements. And the last piece is Windows 7, which is still the reality in most enterprises still today. And you end up managing Windows 10 just like you did for Windows 7, and you repeat the processes that are used in Windows 7. So that's a major blocker as well. There's also the option to do a group-by-group transition, which is the most common scenario. However, this doesn't address the needs of the full organization. The thinking here is that users that just aren't on the corporate network, they're field-based workers, they can make the switch easily, but in reality, there are compatibility issues with the users on premises as well that are left behind. So there you go. So therefore, the most common path now to modern management will be through the co-management feature. This feature uses a combination of Config Manager and Intune as well, for both to manage Windows 10 at the same time, as well as being Active Directory and Azure Active Directory joined at the same time. This allows you to offload some of the Config Manager workloads into Intune, or vice versa, for groups of users, or to take advantage of the best of both worlds, and therefore allow you to move parts or workloads, if you like, of your management into the cloud in a practical, iterative, and controlled way over a period of time when it suits you. So therefore, in bite-sized steps. And most importantly, I think this approach minimizes the risk as well. So there's two main paths to reach co-management. One is Config Manager provisioned co-management, where you have a Windows device already managed by Config Manager, and is hybrid Azure AD joined. And that device will get enrolled into Intune automatically when you enable the co-management feature. So for example, if you already have the existing Config Manager infrastructure in place, and you want to move some of the features into Intune for management. So for example, you can move pilot clients to Windows Update for Business rather than using your ADR rules with SCCM to deploy the software updates. So Windows Update for Business doesn't require any on-prem infrastructure to store the update packages, because Windows 10 pulls the updates directly from Microsoft Windows Update Server. It also allows you to determine when servicing branches or Windows 10 upgrades are deployed to systems. This allows you to define deployment rings, which are according to your software update deployment strategy that you're using for your on-prem version of deploying software updates. You can also pause the upgrades for a defined period of time. You can take advantage of the Windows 10 delivery optimization feature to share software update content between the devices for peer-to-peer content delivery. And then the other path to co-management are those devices that are already provisioned in Intune. They're already enrolled in Intune, and then you want to install the config manager client on those devices to reach a co-management state. These possibilities lead us to an interesting scenario. What if we would leverage the Intune capabilities to enable config manager environment? So in other words, let a user register its Windows 10 device with Intune, and then via Intune install the config manager agent so that the device is co-managed. Then we can use the best features from Intune and config manager to fully manage a Windows 10 machine. So one example is, there's a tricky Win32 application that uses exes, you have a deployment scenario which is quite complex with command lines, and Intune doesn't actually deliver a mechanism to be able to deploy that. So to address this scenario, you want to offload this to config manager for those particular machines. After you enable co-management, config manager continues to manage all workloads. So when you decide that when you're ready, you can have Intune start managing available workloads. So currently you can have Intune manage the following workloads. Compliance policies. So compliance policies define the rules and settings that a device must comply with in order to be considered compliant by conditional access policies. You can also use compliance policies to monitor and remediate compliance issues with the devices independently of conditional access. So for Windows 10, you can set a rule to require that Windows 10 devices must be reported as healthy. So if this setting is enabled, Windows 10 devices are evaluated using the health attestation service to check, is this device BitLocker, is BitLocker enabled? Is code integrity or device guard enabled for application control? Is secure boot enabled on this device? And then it will report back the device as compliant or non-compliant. And then you can use conditional access policies to block access to corporate resources like email if the device is reported as non-compliant. And there's also Windows Update for Business, which we briefly mentioned in the previous slide. So Windows Update for Business policies let you configure deferral policies for Windows 10, feature updates or quality updates for devices, for Windows 10 devices managed directly by Windows Update for Business. And the update rings allow you to define deployment rings, so determining when groups of devices will get updates. So that will be in line with what your software update deployment strategy is to stagger out that deployment. And then there's the resource access policies. So in Intune, resource access policies configure VPN, Wi-Fi, email settings, and certificate settings on devices to do exactly that, which is provide access to those corporate resources through those methods. So these are the methods these are the actual workloads that are available to be able to transfer to Intune. So over time, it will be possible to transition more workloads through co-management. To enable the co-management scenario, we need to fulfill a few technical requirements. So we need Windows 10 1709 build, so the full creators update released in October. So specifically, this version is the one that will work for co-management. For Windows 10 clients with the config manager client already installed, they also need to be hybrid Azure AD joined as well. So join to AD and Azure AD at the same time. That is a prerequisite. And this is to be able to automatically enroll into Intune to bring it into co-management when you enable the co-management feature. And you need config manager version 1710 or later. And within that, you need cloud management gateway configured. And also the co-management feature needs to be enabled in config manager as well. Of course, you need a Azure AD tenant. Within that, you need, obviously your public domain name already verified, Azure AD Connect already in place, synchronizing your identities to Azure AD. Azure automatic enrollment enabled as well. And of course, you need the EMS or at least Intune licenses assigned to those identities as well that you want to use for co-management. And you need a Intune standalone subscription as well. So if you don't have that and you're still in a hybrid Intune integration with Config Manager, there are tools to help you migrate to standalone, like the Intune data importer tool. So the most complex part of the entire setup is actually getting the Config Manager cloud management gateway up and running. Devices communicate over the internet to Config Manager via the cloud management gateway, and certificates are therefore required for this. Ultimately, the cloud management gateway is required for those devices that are already enrolled in Intune. Without the Config Manager client installed, and we use Intune to install the Config Manager client to bring it into co-management. Each instance of the Cloud Management Gateway supports up to 4,000 clients. The Cloud Management Gateway only supports the management point and software update points role at present. And there's the Cloud Management Gateway connector point. So this is a Config Manager site system server running the Cloud Management Gateway connector point. And we also need a Azure subscription for cloud services. This is an Azure subscription for cloud services in your Azure tenant, basically. We mentioned certificates, so custom SSL certs. This is basically a SSL cert from the internal, or it can be a public certificate authority. This is basically used to encrypt communication from the client computers and authenticate the identity of the Cloud Management Gateway service in Azure. And we also need a management certificate. So the Azure management certificate is used to authenticate Config Manager with your Azure AD tenant. Okay, so that's enough of the theory. Time to dive straight into my lab environment, and I'll walk you through the process of setting up the co-management feature. Okay, so as you've seen from the requirements, we need 2 certificates, which I've already created in my lab. I've already configured the co-management within my lab environment. So, we require 1 management certificate to authenticate Config Manager with Azure, and we need 1 SSL cert as well to identify our cloud management gateway on the internet. Okay, so I've already created the certificates here. I'll show you. So we should have 5 certificates in total. So 2 for the Azure Management certificate and 2 for the Cloud Management Gateway, and we need a root cert as well. So what you would do, this is my certificate authority. I have a standalone single tier PKI. And you can leverage that to generate these certificates that you need. But you should have a 2-tier in production. So you need certificates that will, be able to export private keys as well. So here's my certificate authority, and essentially you would make a duplicate template of your web server. To give it a proper name, for example, Cloud Management Gateway. Allow the private key to be exported. And you also want to make sure that you add in domain users. And give them the rights to enroll in the security tab. Okay, so that can form the template for our management certificate and our Cloud Management Gateway certificate as well. Okay, once you do that, then you would actually issue the certificate as well. Yeah, once we've got that, then we can actually generate the certificates on another client through the certificates MMC snapping. Okay, so we can just request the new certificate and check out our templates that we've created. And here's one that I created earlier. And we need to provide this certificate with additional information. So this will form the actual, what we'll create here is the Cloud Management Gateway certificate. So in the subject name, in the common name, we need to choose a name for the actual URL. And this will be our public certificate, so it needs to be unique on the internet. It will fail if it's not unique. So we need to check if the DNS name in cloud service is already taken. So we need to pick a unique name. So what we would do, we go into our Azure AD tenant, and we navigate to the services node. There it is, cloud services. Click on add. And here we can verify if that DNS name is valid. So if I type in the one that I've already created, it will not. It should not be available. Yeah. So here you can actually come in here and pick a name, and you can use this for the certificate name. So once you've got your unique name, it needs to end with cloudapp.net. And you add that in. Okay, and then you just go through the actual enrollment process. You can give it a friendly name as well, so that in the future it'll be easy for you to actually find the certificate. Yep, so you go through and create that certificate there, and then go through the enrollment process of creating that. Okay. And then you can repeat the same process to create your management certificate as well. With the management certificate, you have to provide the common name as well. It doesn't need to be unique, so it doesn't need the cloudapp.net domain name, and you can use your local domain name there to generate that. What I actually did is I didn't actually, you can actually use a self-signed certificate. So I just used the script to create a self-signed certificate. I can show you here. So I didn't use my internal certificate authority to create this, to create the one that I've got. So I use this to actually generate the PFX certificate and generate that out. So that's the one with the exportable key, and the CER, which is the one without the exportable key. So once you've got those certificates, you can actually export those out. Okay, so again, using your certificate MMC snapping, you can export that certificate out. Yeah, so make sure you need to create two different versions. So one with the exported private key and one without. So that will create the PFX file when you export the private key, and the one without will create the CER file. We also, because we're issuing these certificates from our own PKI as well, we need to have an export of the root and subordinate CAs as well. So the easiest way of doing this is just to select your certificate, select the root path, go into the details and just copy to file, and that will generate the CER root folder as well, the root certificate. Yeah, again, if you have a subordinate as well, then you need to actually repeat the process for the subordinate CA as well. And then you should end up with these certificates here. So these are your management certificate. So we've got the one with the exportable private key, one without. Account management gateway certificate with the exportable private key and one without, and we've got the root CA as well. These are all certificates that we need. Next, we need to upload the Azure Management Certificate into the one without the exportable key, private key, and export that up to our Intune subscription. Okay, so let's just go back into our Intune portal. Okay, and we need to click on subscriptions here. Yeah, so I've got a free trial subscription, but at this point, if you don't see any subscriptions, this means that you don't have a valid Azure subscription to create virtual machines, which is essentially what the Cloud Management Gateway will do. It will create it will be a virtual machine that's created on the back end in Azure. So you can always do as I have done, just for testing, create a free trial, or a pay-as-you-go subscription to test out the Cloud Management Gateway functionality. And you'll only be billed for what you use. And for a Cloud Management Gateway, the cost is quite limited. Okay, so we'll just go in here and into my subscription. We can go down to the management certificates. Okay, and here you would upload the CER version of the management certificate that we exported earlier. So that's the one without the private key. Make a note of the subscription ID, because you'll need this when you configure the Cloud Management Gateway. Okay, so that's kind of all the prerequisites there for the Cloud Management Gateway. So once we've got that up, then we can go into Config Manager. So here's my Config Manager environment on this server. Just close this down. Okay, and we go into the administration workspace, and then we've got the Cloud Management Gateway. So obviously I've already created this this Cloud Management Gateway in my environment. So let's have a look at what information we need to provide. So we need to provide the subscription ID that you noted earlier when you uploaded the management certificate into Azure, into the subscriptions. And for the management certificate here, you need to provide the PFX version of the management certificate. So that's the one with the exportable private key. So at this point, what you're doing is you're allowing your primary site server to make changes in Azure without you having to specify a username or password. These certificates are replacing the user credentials, if you will. Yeah, so you select your appropriate region. Select your appropriate region here. And then you provide the SSL cert for the Cloud Management Gateway with the private PFX key, with the private key. So it's the PFX version of the file. Once you've selected that, it will automatically populate the service name and the service FQDN here, based on the certificate common name. And then here you would, through the wizard, you'd actually add the root certificate that we exported. That would include any subordinate root certificate if you had a two-tier PKI, unlike mine. If your CRLs aren't reachable from the internet, then make sure to uncheck verify client certificate revocation box. In my environment, I haven't actually published the CRLs. So at this point, what you'll see once you complete that visit is the status will be in a provisioning phase. And then at this point, a classic service deployment, which includes a virtual machine, will be created in Azure. So that is the actual cloud management gateway on the back end. So because mine is already ready and that's already complete, I can show you that in my portal. So if we head back to the cloud services blade, okay, here you can see the this is the actual result of creating that cloud management gateway in Config Manager. It's actually created this VM here that acts as the cloud management gateway. Next step is to add the cloud management gateway connection point in Config Manager. So pretty straightforward. If we head back to Config Manager, so let's go to sites and look at new roles. So I've already added cloud management gateway connection point. So it will populate, you just complete the wizard, it will fill out all these details in for you. That's ready to go. Next, you need to enable your management point and your software update point to use the cloud management gateway. So again, that's quite straightforward as well. So you just go into your management point. And then you just allow this tick box. So allow configuration manager cloud management gateway traffic. And you want to allow intranet and intranet connections as well. And then if we look at the same thing for the software updates points, here's the equivalent setting there. So allow configuration manager cloud management gateway traffic. Allow internet and intranet client connections. So let's head back to our cloud management gateway. So we just want to check the connection points here. And the role endpoints here. So we can see that as a result of allowing the management point and software update point, we are seeing these endpoints being presented to the cloud management gateway. Okay, and we can see the client connections coming in as well, because I've had this up and running for a couple of days. Been doing some testing. We can see some client requests coming in through Internet Connected clients. Next, we need to configure Azure AD discovery. So that's the ability for Config Manager to be able to discover. So you'll be familiar with the discovery options in Config Manager, but we can now discover. Identities that have been synchronized to Azure AD, so we can synchronize from Azure AD as well. So for that, we need to create a web application. So administrations pane. Okay, and I've already created one here. Okay, so we'll just run through the wizard to show you what that looks like. Okay, so firstly, you need to create a web app. So you give an application name, and just go with the defaults for the URLs. You can opt to increase the key validity if you want, and then you sign in with your Azure AD Global admin account. I'm not going to do this because it's going to go and create a VM in my instance. And then you go through the same process to create a native client application as well. Okay, and then you'll have, you'll be in this position where you've got the apps already created once you run through that wizard. With both of these apps created, we can click next to the we can complete that the Azure Services wizard, and assuming that you have Azure AD Connect already set up and syncing your users to cloud, you can now enable Azure Active Directory user discovery. So just to recap, what we've done here is we've just created a web and a native app. But what exactly did we do there? What is it for? So think of an app in this regard as a user or computer account in Azure AD. The config manager console allows you to create it in a convenient way, but you can actually do it manually in Azure AD as well. Once the app is actually created, a client secret key will be generated in Azure, and in our user computer account analogy, this will be the equivalent of the password. So at this point, you don't want to trigger the actual synchronization of your for Active Directory user discovery. Firstly, we need to approve both apps that we just created in Azure. So we'll hop back onto the Azure portal, and we'll go into app registrations blade. So it decides to load eventually, and then you can see your client app that you've created here and your service app. So what you do is you go in there, and you need to grant some permissions basically. So once that decides to load, we can go to the required permissions. There we go. There we go, and we simply just go in here and grant permissions. So that the apps actually need some permissions to function, but they don't actually approve their own requested permissions. This is why we need to go in as an extra step and give the final control of what happens here. Yeah, and eventually you'll see this successfully granted permissions box. And then you repeat the same thing for the client app as well that you created. But we won't go through that right now because I've already done it. So once that's done, you can actually trigger a sync here, right? You can do a full Azure Active Directory sync to bring those identities into Config Manager. Okay, so I've already done this obviously, and we can have a look at what that looks like. Okay, so you'll notice this EMS Kings is my public domain name. And if you go into the properties, you'll see that this is a Azure AD user discovery rather than on-prem AD. And once we are there, then we can actually go ahead and finally configure the co-management feature within SCCM. So here we are. This is the co-management feature in the cloud services node. So this is actually a pre-release feature. So you may not see it here. You actually will have to enable the feature. So if you look here, it's listed as a pre-release. So it will be off by default, and you have to go in and approve that to enable that cloud management feature. Once you've done that, you need to restart console, and it will appear. Okay, let's see what the settings look like in there. Okay, so you'll go through this wizard, and there's the automatic enrollment in Intune. So we need to enable automatic enrollment in Intune. So what we are saying here is once we turn on the actual feature, then we're specifying a pilot group, so a pilot collection, and only those pilot collection users will be automatically enrolled into Intune. Otherwise, you can select all, which would be all, which would mean that all devices that are hybrid Azure AD joined will be enrolled into Intune, and the pilot allows you to just control it based on that collection. I'll show you what this is for in a second. And here we have the workloads. So this is where we can actually start moving workloads to Intune, right? For either the pilot collection that we created here, so the pilot Intune collection, or we can slide it across and say, okay, so we want to manage compliance policies for all Windows 10 clients that are Azure AD joined. Okay, or we can slide it back and say, yes, compliance policies for these clients will be config manager. So I'm using my pilot Intune group. So I've specified that here. Got a device collection that basically has my pilot co-management machines in there that I want to start transitioning into Intune. So that's for the scenario where you've got your Windows 10 on-prem devices. They're they're AD joined, they're Azure AD joined, but they're managed by a config manager, right? So they have the config manager client installed, and you're managing everything through config manager. But what about for those clients where the second entry point into co-management, where you've got the clients already enrolled into Intune, right? So they're enrolled into Intune, they're consuming Intune workloads, but then you want to bring those into a co-management state where they're also being managed by SCCM. So for that, we would need to create an application to install the config manager agent, and we create an application in Intune. And this is the command line that we would use to actually populate within that application. And then we can deploy that out automatically to those clients. So we could deploy out to maybe the pilot collection in Azure. Any device that you enroll purely into Intune, they will automatically install the actual config manager agent and become co-managed at that point. So they'll be managed in SCCM as well as Intune. Okay, so that's pretty much how you would configure that, right? So let's have a look at one of my clients and see if we can see that co-management process of it transitioning from just SCCM management into Intune management as well, into that co-management state. Okay, so I have this client here, which is domain joined. So obviously this is a Windows 10 1709 build. Okay, so we've got config manager installed. It's managed through config manager. So this is not part of the actual that Intune pilot collection, the co-management pilot collection. So firstly, let's verify that the client requirements are met. So let's make sure that it's Azure AD registered as well, which is one of the requirements to be able to use the co-management. So you can launch a command prompt and run this command. Okay, and we can see that it is Azure AD joined as well. And we can see that in the console as well, and also verify that this machine is not actually enrolled into Intune before we enable call management for it. Okay, so we'll go back into the Azure AD portal, pop into Intune. Just check the host name to be sure. So this ends in DJ003. Okay, and we can see it's not actually there. Okay, it's not managed in Intune. It's not enrolled into Intune. Let's see if it's Azure AD joined. So here it is. We can see DJ003 is hybrid Azure AD joined. So it's both AD joined and domain joined as well. Okay, so there is a log file that we can check. So we need to open this log file to actually monitor the actual process of it being co-managed. So let's look at this log file co-management handler. So this is a config manager client log that we're looking at. And now what we'll do is we're ready to actually enable co-management for this particular device. So we'll go back into config manager and we will add this client to our pilot collection for co-management. So here's my pilot collection. I'll just add this client directly in. Okay, so it's DJ03. Let's add that in. Okay, it's there. And just to verify again, in our co-management settings, we've got the pilot collection there, and we'll specify pilot Intune as well for the policies that we want to actually transition to Intune. And to speed this up, what we'll do is we'll actually do a policy refresh. Just do a policy refresh there. The config manager client. We can see some activity here. So we can see an entry where it's enrolling the device into MDM, which will be Intune. It's recognized that the device is already enrolled, is now enrolled with Intune. Succeeded to set call management info. So let's hop back onto our Intune console. And it should shortly appear as being enrolled into Intune. We'll give it a few seconds, but meanwhile, I can show you the automatic enrollment that needs to be configured as well in Intune. So we're going to do an Active Directory. Select mobility. Microsoft Intune. And I've already configured that, so this is the auto enrollment capability here. So I've got a group Intune auto enroll users, which I've specified. Okay, let's go back and check if the device has enrolled into Intune. I think we're in luck. DJ003, and what you'll notice is in this column, managed by, whereas these top two devices are purely devices that have been enrolled into Intune directly, not AD joined. These devices are co-managed, and therefore we have this MDM/config manager agent, so it is managed by both. So at this point, you should have your policies already in place before you do the co-management, before you enable co-management for your clients. You should already have compliance policies set up, equivalent to what you require. Same with the software updates as well. When you're transitioning these devices for Windows Update for Business, you want to go in and have compliance policies set up already. And software updates, setting up your rings according to what your actual software update deployment strategy is. And with that, we have some time for questions. So that's the end of the demo and the end of the presentation. Yep, so a few questions here from Farhan. So yeah, this recording will actually be available, and we'll send you the links to be able to access how to configure this. I appreciate that there are quite a few moving parts to this, so it might not be easy to kind of follow on the first go. So we'll definitely make that recording available to you. Another question from Andrew. How important is 1709 to this? Can 1703 be used in the short term? No, this is specifically for 1709. Any previous versions will not work for co-management.